Good afternoon, little angels, and I really hope you had a lovely Easter, even if it was slightly different to the usual one. This isn't just a story for little angels either, it's a story for anybody who's got children and families, and even adults actually. It's surprising what adults can learn, even from children's stories or thoughts for children. So, I thought that after Easter weekend, and remembering the story that I told you on Easter Day about Mary Magdalene going to the tomb, and she meets Jesus, and Jesus says to her, Go and tell my disciples what you have found out. Well, Mary did go, and she ran to the disciples who were still waiting to hear what had happened. But some of the disciples had already left Jerusalem. They were a bit too frightened to wait, so they decided that they would go back to their own villages. And a couple of them decided to go to a village called Emmaus. And so we're going to pick the story up this afternoon with these two disciples who decided that they wouldn't wait in Jerusalem with the others. They would go back to Emmaus. And you can see them in the picture here on my Bible. So there they are, and they are walking down the road to Emmaus. You can see Emmaus right at the end of the road, a little village there. So they're walking. So let's see if we can hear the story of the road to Emmaus. Also, in this story, there are some words that you can join in with as well. So every time I say talking and walking or walking and talking, you can say those words with me. And it begins with those words. So are you ready? Are you steady? Talking and walking, walking and talking. The two men travelled from Jerusalem to Emmaus. It was a long journey on foot. And because the two men were friends of Jesus, there was plenty to talk about, like the rumour that some of his friends had seen him alive again. So, talking and walking, walking and talking, they made their way. Then a stranger joined them. I hear you talking. I see you walking, said the stranger. You sound excited. What are you talking about? We're talking about Jesus, said one of the two men. And then, talking and walking, walking and talking, he explained. Jesus was a prophet sent from God. He did amazing things. Many of us thought he was the special one God promised to save us from our enemies. But the religious leaders sentenced him to death. The Romans killed him on a cross, and all our hopes died with him. That was 3 days ago. But this morning, some of the women who knew him went to visit his tomb, and his body wasn't there. Better still, an angel told them that Jesus wasn't dead anymore, that he was alive again. The stranger listened carefully, and then, talking and walking, walking and talking, he told the men what he thought. You sound surprised, he said. Isn't that what the prophets said would happen to the special one? If this Jesus died and came to life again, then surely that shows that he is the special one you've been waiting for. At last, talking and walking and walking and talking, they came to Emmaus. It's late, said the two men to the stranger. Why don't you stay here with us overnight? And so, talking and walking, walking and talking, they prepared a simple meal. Do you mind if I give thanks for the food? Asked the stranger. Oh, of course not, said the two men. So taking and breaking the bread, the stranger bowed his head and prayed. And that's when the two men knew. The stranger, the man on the road, the one they'd been talking and walking with all afternoon, wasn't a stranger at all. I wonder if you can guess who that person was who'd been walking with them. I'll give you a moment to think, perhaps, but I bet you're all saying it out loud now. It was, of course, Jesus. He was alive again. But before they could say a thing, Jesus disappeared. He simply wasn't there anymore, and they were left alone to wonder. "We need to tell someone about this," they cried. So they hurried back to Jerusalem, not talking and not walking, but running and jumping for joy. They really did need to tell someone about that, didn't they? Because what an amazing story. The thing that always amazes me about the stories of Easter, like Mary at the tomb on Easter Sunday and the two followers here, is that these were people who had known Jesus for a long time, and yet they still didn't recognise him when he came alongside them. It got me thinking about when we don't recognise Jesus. And where could we find Jesus? How do we know that Jesus is walking with us, just like he was walking with the two followers? I wonder how you know that Jesus is walking alongside you. What does it feel like to know that Jesus is with you? Maybe you can't feel anything. Maybe you need to keep reminding yourself every day that just because you haven't seen him or can't find him, that he actually still is there. I think this is my favourite story from the Easter stories, apart from the story of Easter Day, because it reminds me that Jesus isn't pushy. He just comes into our lives and walks with us wherever we go and whatever we do and whatever's happening. And he will reveal himself to us. Jesus is very clever though, because he doesn't reveal himself to us in the most amazing things and in the incredible parts of our lives. He reveals himself to us in the ordinary things. So one of the questions I was going to ask you, little angels, is what would you give Jesus to eat if he knocked on your door this tea time and said, "Please, can I have some food?" What would you like to give Jesus as a meal? Perhaps you'd like to set the table with all sorts of lovely things. A feast, perhaps. You could have, I don't know. You think, what are some of the really delicious food that you like to eat? And perhaps the delicious drink that you like to have. I think if he was coming to my house, I would think I would like to make sure that there was a real party atmosphere. There would be lots of wine and lots of crisps and snacks and lots of nice music for him. But then, actually, all the stories we know of Jesus, and this story especially, are about Jesus coming in ordinary things. It isn't when they sit down to a feast that the two followers recognise Jesus. It's when he breaks the bread, like he did on the Last Supper, like he would have done lots and lots and lots of times with them when they were his followers and his disciples. He comes to them in the ordinary things. So actually, maybe I wouldn't set the table with all the things that made a great big feast. Maybe I'd just have a little bit of wine and some really nice bread. And then we could enjoy talking over the bread and the wine, talking about our life and the way in which Jesus is in my life and how I want him to be in my life even more. I wonder then if today you could, when you have your tea, or maybe on every day when you have your tea or your lunch or your breakfast, remember to say thank you first, like Jesus did, didn't he? He said thank you for the bread. He gave thanks for the bread. Remember to say thank you for the food we have, and remember the people who have made it for us and brought it to our shops. Remember too all those who don't have very much food. And then perhaps we can eat our food really slowly and enjoy every mouthful and talk to the people who are in your family or around you. Talk about your day or what your hopes and dreams are, or what you need to go and tell somebody, like those two followers did. Perhaps you've done something exciting today or found something exciting out. It's difficult to do exciting things when you're stuck in the house in the garden, I know, but maybe you found something out, or maybe you've seen a plant grow. I can't believe how much my apple tree is blossoming, and every single day there seems to be a new flower on it. That's a miracle, because I thought I killed it last year. So it's amazing to watch it. Go and have a look and see what you can see in the ordinary things of life. And we're all having to do that at the moment, having to look at the ordinary things and find special things out of them, things that tell us of who God is and where Jesus is in our lives. When we're at church on Sundays, we have bread and we have wine, and they're the symbols of the great heavenly feast. But actually they remind us that God is to be found in the ordinary things of life. So the last thing to suggest is that you actually make some bread. You might have a recipe already, but I found a recipe for what's known as unleavened bread. And this is the bread that often Jesus and his disciples would have eaten, because they didn't have time to wait for bread to rise. And it's also a bit different in very, very hot countries. So unleavened bread is really easy to make. It's basically 250 grams of any flour, half a teaspoonful of salt, 120 millilitres of water, and 5 teaspoons of olive oil. But I'm sure margarine or butter would work, might not be exactly the same. So see, perhaps if you've got those ingredients in your cupboards, in your homes, maybe you could make some bread with your mum or your dad or your grandma or your granddad, whoever's looking after you. And you could make that bread and bake it, and then maybe you could eat that at tea time, perhaps tomorrow or the next day. Anyway, take care. Sending you lots of love and prayers, and hope to see you all soon. Bye.